Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brock Beard from lastcar.info coming at you after the conclusion of the Bank of America Roval 400 in Charlotte, where unofficially, pending the results of post-race inspection, Shane Van Gisbergen has pulled off yet another win at the Roval here this time around. We got some playoff eliminations. We've got everything else here. I had to double check the sponsorship. I was trying to remember it from memory for the race here today. Yes, indeed. This one just kind of went right over my head, I have to say. I'm still kind of internalizing what exactly to think about this particular race, other than we need a full season championship. I would have to say, I already see your comments in here, Ben. I'd have to agree. It's unfortunate. We get a little bit of a circus here. We get a little circus McGurkus here at the finish with Ross Chastain running over Denny Hamlin and then slamming the car in reverse, which is pretty dramatic stuff there to see at the same time. Did they ever show a replay of AJ Allmendinger doing the same thing there towards the end and backing up across the line? I know Lee Diffie described it there at the end, but I gotta say, I'm just a little ragged on this in general. I mean, I put the caption down here below about the track being the infield obstacle course, and I think that's where the Roval kind of fits into things these days. I know that it was attempted in 2018 to try to create some new venues, new tracks out of the existing venues back before COVID and the reorganization of the schedule and what we see now with all these other tracks and all, and trying to do something different and having some kind of crazy stuff happen. It's the racecraft of this track has never really impressed me, and it's always felt like with the constraints of it always being an elimination race, I'd be interested how differently this track would have raced in the regular season, and I know that wouldn't happen because you got the Coke 600 in May. You're going to have a second date that's going to be that close to it earlier in the year. Probably not. I don't know. I just feel kind of on this one here. And it's a shame because, again, I don't want to sell this race short, though, at the same time. I mean, first and foremost, let's start at the beginning here. Shane Van Gisbergen showing that, as if there was ever any doubt, the man can win on just about any kind of road course. Doesn't matter if it's a street course, if it's a purpose-built road course, or an infield road course. Him coming in at the same time that the Indy road course and the Daytona road course were kind of getting scaled off the schedule. I wasn't sure. I didn't pick him to win this race. I thought Tyler Reddick, even with everything that he's going through, and of course, thoughts are going to him and his family and what they're dealing with their little one there, and certainly hope he's pulling through here on all that. I really felt like, one of the other series regulars or somebody or playoff contenders were going to really put on, a clinic here. And we did see some great battles towards the end in particular. Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell, I think, really distinguished themselves. Larson was very aggressive out there in trying to pull off his second straight win here at the Roval, his third overall at this track, and battling Van Gisbergen. And that was good to see. And I thought that was interesting. But man, Van Gisbergen he's so smooth. He was able to save his tires and his brakes and everything, and just very methodically, every time he needed to get back up there and take the lead. He didn't lead the entire race, didn't lead every lap, didn't have to. Every time he was in any kind of deficit, even when Larson had a great pit stop, was just able to methodically work his way up there. I think that he put together a very impressive driver's clinic in this, which is unfortunate because of the playoff system, we're not going to hear about that because it's all going to be about, Joey Logano and Ross Chastain and all this. And, it's an unfortunate consequence again of this playoff system here. Because I think this was a very impressive drive for Van Gisbergen. I think it was a fine effort from the Trackhouse effort to put together a good car. And I don't entirely buy the issue that he had with his tires. I guess we'll see if they get some more reports about if that one of his rear tires was coming apart there towards the end and how much he had to nurse it around. It really didn't look like he was losing that much ground to the rest of the field there, maintaining about a 20-second advantage over everybody else, and then getting it down to about 17 seconds there at the end of the day. I could only think back to Jeff Gordon during his dominance of the road courses in the early 2000s. I remember watching the broadcast after we came home from that race, and Bob Jenkins saying like, oh, Jeff Gordon, he might run out of gas. He might run out of gas. Like, that's going to be the thing. But he had that race in his back pocket the entire day. Even in that one, too, very similar to this. Sterling Marlin getting into the mix there and trying to beat Gordon there at the end. And, in fact, passing him off pit road at one point and getting a good second-place finish out of a race where Marlin had struggled so much in his career. Had kind of elements of that in this one too. But, Gordon was very much capable of being able to cruise there to the end and did actually pulling off that victory that day. And it felt very much like this one here too. They tried to have some more drama, maybe to convince themselves to talk more about drivers outside the playoffs here at the end. But ultimately Van Gisbergen was just too much for the field to bear. He easily had the best car out there. Probably Bell and Larson, you could argue, for the second best car, and everybody else was just kind of everybody else, and that was kind of the way it shook out. Tough deal for everybody else in the field there, and how that shakes out. But nobody winning and advancing through this round here. But Van Gisbergen, very impressive. I mean, regardless of how, it's unfortunate. It's another problem with this championship format. We shouldn't have to add any caveat. There shouldn't be a but after that. The man winning all these road courses in any one season, especially when the variety of road courses is so dramatic these days, that should just be it. End of story. He won 5 races. Who cares that we're all on road courses? It's very impressive, and these other drivers out there, if they want to get better, they're going to have to really put it to them. And I applaud the other drivers in the field, especially Larson, for not wrecking him, for not, getting to that point, for just racing him hard. And that's what you need to do. That's going to make Van Gisbergen work that much harder on his end, too, to be able to battle back. And I did like that. And I want to just put all that playoff stuff just kind of aside there. But unavoidably, we got to talk about it because that's where it all shakes out. Ultimately, the bottom 4 in the points coming into this still end up eliminated. Chastain coming very close to bumping out Joey Logano, but some costly mistakes on pit road. First of all, missing the exit of pit road, that very, very hard left-hander, 90-degree turn, probably even an acute angle coming back on it there to exit pit road there. I don't know if he just got highway hypnosis or something. He just kept driving forward and missed that turn. I don't get why the broadcast was treating that like it was some massive controversy. I think he just presented as a massive screw up. I mean, again, you have a situation there, like if we're going to talk about Marcus Ambrose and stalling the car at the top of the hill at Sears Point back in 2010. Yeah, I think you treat it exactly the same. It sucks. Yeah, you'll lose a lot of spots for no reason, but that's the nature of it. These different tracks have different pit roads. If he had stalled at the exit of pit road on a perfectly straight pit road at Charlotte or any other track, I would treat it exactly the same way. I don't know why they made it sound like that wasn't going to happen. Of course, that was the way that you would handle it there. And I think Chastain himself, I will give him full credit. Listening to his interview just before starting the show here tonight, yeah, it was entirely in his hands. And between that and the mistake of, speeding on pit road later in the race, yeah, either one of those didn't happen. He probably would have had just enough to be ahead of Joey Logano and bump him out of the playoffs here. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. And under this system, it is unforgiving when it comes down to things at the end here. And unfortunately, didn't work out for him. But a valiant effort. I know it's got to sting, when you got your teammate winning the race here. But I thought they put together, as good of a race as they could. It just, a couple of little mistakes ended up being just catastrophic for him in the next round here. And pending the results of post-race inspection, which was a big factor in last year's race here, you may recall here, not going to be the story here for him this year around. So we'll see what happens in post-race inspection. If we get a call on it during the show here tonight, we'll find out. He was not the only driver. He was far from the only driver that was struggling in this one. We saw some massive struggles at the back of the field right from the beginning of this event here. Kyle Busch, contact from Carson Hocevar, putting him into the outside wall in turn one, very reminiscent of the pileup that we had at the front of the field in the Truck Series race there 2 days ago. We'll talk about the trucks and Xfinity a little bit later on in the show here tonight. But clobbered the outside wall. Kyle Busch limping back to the DVP zone at the very beginning of the race, losing several laps, about 10 laps there before he got back out on the track. Got 2 of those laps back before the checkered flag, just because we had such little attrition in this race. Very few drivers losing a lap until maybe about the last 10, 15 laps here, with drivers actually being caught by Van Gisbergen at the end, which seems like it's more or less been the trend at the Roval in recent years, infield road courses in particular. But Kyle Busch was your last place runner for most of this event. And then Austin Cindric just having just a horrible race out here. I know I was talking him up a lot on last week's show about him being a real good contender, about bumping his way out of the bottom 4, certainly for his road course experience. COTA in particular seems to be one of his best tracks on the road courses, all the way back to the old generation of car when he was running on dry tires there on a damp track for so many laps. I really expected him to have a good showing out here today. Just didn't happen. Had a penalty in missing one of the chicanes, had to do a stop and go, got spun a couple of times. The second spin broke a toe link there on the right rear. He goes to the garage area and ends up back there for about 20 laps and takes the last place spot from Kyle Busch and never really climbs back out of it. There's just so little attrition at the end. The only other driver that had any kind of mechanical issue there towards the end was Brad Keselowski, breaking down in the chicane. Did a fine job pulling off the track and making sure not to bring out a caution there at the end. I think he did a very respectful job of that, pulling up to the garage area out of the race. And if Cindric didn't lose any more laps, it looked like it was going to be about 4 laps from the math that I was looking at the time. It really came down to being about 1 lap there at the end, but Cindric ended up losing another lap there towards the end of the event, 22 laps down for him by the checkered flag, and he misses Keselowski by about 2 laps there. Would have needed 3 really to get around the 6 car there at the checkered flag, and Austin Cindric finishes the race under power. I believe it's the 3rd time that's happened this year. It's first time since the Southern 500 with Josh Berry's deal there as well, where he had the crash at the very beginning, more than 100 laps of repairs, getting back out there. 2 other cars, Derek Kraus and Cody Ware, falling out of the event at that point there, but not able to catch either of them and still having the last place finish. So another Penske car kind of having that same deal here. I had mentioned earlier that this was his 2nd last place finish. That was incorrect. It was actually the Spring Phoenix race of last year. That was his most recent last place run, but it would be his 4th of his career for Cindric. First one this season, and I believe he'd still be pretty low in the rankings here for the Last Car Championship, with drivers like Riley Herbst having 3 last place run-ins this year. Herbst also having just a miserable weekend between the incident he had in practice, getting bounced around on the front straightaway there a couple of times, dropping him back in the rankings here. Ends up with a 30th place finish here at the end of this race. Just 1 lap down there, too. But Cindric ends up your last place finisher for today. Again, pending the results of post-race inspection. I believe it's the first time the number 2s finished last in this event here as well. Keselowski, Kyle Busch, again, your bottom 3 finishers. Cody Ware and Josh Bilicki unofficially, again, completing the bottom 5. Bilicki does complete his triple-header weekend this week at the Roval. So kudos to him. Had a decent run at the Truck Series race. Things are a little bit more difficult on the Xfinity and certainly the Cup Series side, but does complete all 3 races. So kudos to him on that. That was no small accomplishment, especially given how busy his schedule has been in all the road course circuits this year for Bilicki. So certainly kudos to him there on that. We saw some other altercations as well. Austin Dillon and Zane Smith bouncing off each other there through turns 4 and 5. Zane Smith actually getting in the back of Dillon and shoving him into the outside wall, and he had some choice words for him over the radio there. Dillon still finishes 1 lap down in the 32nd spot. Zane Smith up in the 24th position. This all pending the results of post-race inspection here as well. But looking at the top of the field once more, Van Gisbergen, your winner over Kyle Larson, with Christopher Bell in 3rd, Chris Buescher in 4th, Michael McDowell up to the 5th spot there, getting back his mojo there from that promising start to the Chicago Street Course race before the mechanical issues he had back there. Ryan Preece was very surprising in this race. I had 0 expectations for him in this event here, but the RFK number 60 ends up being second in class there behind Buescher. Daniel Suarez was also very good in this one, kind of getting back some late season runs to kind of up his stock for the next season here. Kind of a different deal there for him. 7th place, finished ahead of the Kansas winner, Chase Elliott. AJ Allmendinger, expected him to be very strong in this one. As was mentioned, the spinning around backwards there at the end. I don't know how many spots he lost. I imagine we'll get some more replays here coming up. But AJ Allmendinger in the 9th spot there. And Tyler Reddick, the pole sitter, finishes in 10th. Good effort for him, but again, just short of advancing into the next round there as well. So looking a bit further back here, William Byron in 11th, Ty Gibbs in 12th, Ryan Blaney in 13th. Blaney, up there at one point or another there during the pit strategy. Chase Briscoe kind of just a bit off here in this one. 14th place finish, wasn't feeling too well. There were the reports about him asking for some medication there during the race, some kind of a stomach issue there. Not sure if it was nerves or something else that was going on, as the broadcast was bringing up here too. Bubba Wallace completes the top 15. Again, starting to get better at the road courses here, but unfortunately not to be here for the results here at the same time. But, again, a little bit of bumping and banging out there. So good to see some long green flag runs. Good to see people challenging Van Gisbergen. But is this enough to, suggest that the playoff system is the direction we need to go here? No. Is this enough to really show that the Roval deserves a spot on the schedule? No, I don't think so. I think if we had a 500-mile race again on the oval, that might be something that needs to be looked at again. I think the fact that the crowd was not very good. I know the Panthers were in town for the NFL. Maybe that had a factor in there not being a big crowd out there for this race here. I don't know. It just seems like it's one of those things that would be really, really hard to follow from the crowd, even with the playoff implications of this. And looking at one point or another, I don't know what was shown on the TV screen, on the big screen on the backstretch there to kind of inform the fans of who to watch during the race, not just, who the leader was. Again, I think in terms of the configuration, they've probably reached like the zenith of how good they could really get it. They got rid of that hangnail on the backstretch there that Bubba Wallace ran into in the inaugural practice session. I like that they kind of got rid of that extra twisty section in the infield. That didn't seem to serve much purpose, and people just kind of running off course there. And I think that the turn 7, that corner, that hairpin they've created now, is a good passing zone and all that, which is fine. But again, it's such a difficult race to watch. I mean, for one thing, I don't know about you guys, I had a very, very hard time following what on earth the strategy was for people there. What was the winning strategy? What was the right system? It seemed like Van Gisbergen probably was going to be in position to make another stop there at the end and just didn't. And that's why he had this huge lead over everybody else. When you had Christopher Bell and Kyle Larson pitting with about 15 to go, and who else was going to be able to kind of work their way up there. And then, people just running over the top of each other. I get having quirky venues. I mean, the sport's not above that. I mean, we've had the Clash of the Coliseum. We had races at Bowman Gray, and then of course bringing that back for the Clash. And you can certainly look, say what you will about super speedway racing or even short track racing at tracks like Martinsville or even smaller venues there, that those could produce like really wild and, crazy action there too. I don't know. I'm probably about tapped out on the Roval here at this point, and it's unfortunate because it does go kind of hand in hand with the playoff system. That it's been an elimination race its entire existence, hasn't it? If not the entire time, it seems like it's been for most of these years since 2018. It's been on there, and now that Van Gisbergen's dominated it too. It feels like the trajectory of things is kind of going away from these infield road courses, that again, we don't have the Daytona one now, that the Indy road course went away and we got the Brickyard 400 back. And it's particularly curious given the fact that we have this car that's designed, basically off a GT3 car, that it seems like it would be designed much more for road courses. It's interesting to see the trend kind of going away from that. And I would anticipate that's probably going to be coming up. I guess the Roval's still on the schedule for next year, isn't it? So we're not seeing a change on that. But probably in the near future, we're probably going to go back to either having another race at Charlotte, or maybe that date, going elsewhere. I mean, it's kind of alarming to think of in Charlotte, in the heart of NASCAR country and all that. It's obviously, you're not going to replace, the 600 with the Roval. That's not going to happen. So there's got that kind of situation too. So I don't know. It's not bad. It's tricky. It's not outrageously bad in any sense. It's just kind of it's kind of becoming kind of the ugly duckling here on the schedule, I think at this point. And, if we do return to a full season championship, that will be the interesting thing. If we do get a full season championship and the Roval is still in this part of the schedule and maybe develops its own identity, and we kind of focus more on the racecraft of it, and, focus much more on who's winning and who's doing well in the race and so forth, that would be interesting. And maybe it comes into its own and it has a new life for it. And maybe that's why it would still be on the schedule for next year. So I don't know. I mean, maybe that would be more interesting. Maybe it would be treated kind of like the Bristol Night Race used to be for full season championships, where you have a very physical late season race that the championship driver is just trying to kind of get through and maybe get a top 10, and trying to leave their car in one piece if they can, but they have to have a certain level of aggression because otherwise they'll get run over. Maybe it could develop, kind of that deal itself. And we don't have to focus about this whole cut line bubble battle thing that's happening here at the same time. It's interesting. I'm not going to pretend that wasn't interesting, seeing you there at the end with Joey Logano and Ross Chastain, and understanding whose tires were worn out and who was falling towards who. And we've seen some dramatic battles there, at the end and all that. But I don't know. I don't think it's as necessary. I think I would like it much more to be something that's a little bit closer to what we saw in the Xfinity, and I would say especially the Truck Series race this week, where it was like, how people are kind of working their way back to the front. Unfortunately, we had a late race, last lap caution in yesterday's race, and then some playoff stuff on top of that made that really, muddied up there too. But again, if you had a full season championship, that wouldn't have happened either. And we would just be, talking about, who finished where and where that fit in the full season championship. So we'll talk about that at the same time there too. I don't want to repeat myself too much on that, but congratulations to Van Gisbergen. I mean, I feel like he's conquered that track, and that probably, maybe that spells the end here for this venue on there, but who knows? I don't know what it's like in person. It's an interesting and quirky kind of venue. It's tricky a little bit from a last place standpoint, because again, it does usually have very, very low attrition, like these infield road courses have traditionally had here, especially on the Cup Series side. And it can kind of take the entire distance. So that could be interesting. But I don't know if that necessarily makes it a good racetrack or a good venue there at the same time. So that's another one to look at. Other drivers having good runs here. Denny Hamlin gets knocked back to 23rd there for that contact with Chastain. Logano getting around both of them there in the process and doing even more than he needed to make it to the next round. No, I think that's about all I can. What can you say? Again, I'm glad Larson didn't wreck Van Gisbergen. I like that it was getting physical out there. I love seeing some good racing. I like that there's some good battles out there, and so forth, and that getting featured on screen. And maybe there was a lot more that was happening throughout the field, but you wouldn't really know it from this broadcast because, again, it gets down to, we're getting down to the round of 8, and that's going to be the focus. And, again, I'll hold out some hope that maybe it gets its own identity and we have a more complete understanding of what the racing at the Roval looks like if we do get a full season championship, and still have it in the late season and have this be an obstacle, not for, the entire group of 12 trying to get down to 8, but maybe for the 1 or 2 people that are left battling for a championship, if indeed the battle is still going at that point. That would be interesting. I'd like to see that. But again, I'm kind of thinking, yeah, we probably need to go back to a few other traditions here at the same time here. We'll go into the Xfinity and Truck Series races here too. I really enjoyed both of these. I mean, all this said, with the Cup race today, I thought Xfinity and especially trucks were pretty interesting for what was happening between the two, despite the fact that the far and away the best driver in both series won those races. I still really enjoyed them. Maybe not every aspect of it here, but that's just kind of what's to be expected in any sport here. Connor Zilic pulling off another win here in the Xfinity Series race, kind of similar to what Van Gisbergen had to do, kind of retaking the lead and kind of working his way up there, but had a much more dominant performance, leading 61 of 68 laps out there. Qualified well, raced well, put it in his back pocket there, but not without his share of challengers. I was really enjoying the changing cast of characters that were battling up there towards the front of the field. And how about Austin Green? I am so happy that people are talking about Austin here in this time. He is easily one of the most overlooked talents out there. He would be of the same caliber of Connor Zilic if he was with an even better team. And he's already doing a lot with, and this is no disrespect to Jordan Anderson's team and the Peterson Racing Group that have, by the way, joined forces in most of these starts that Austin has been driving here. It's tremendous. This kid is for real. David Green's son, who you may recall from that video that I posted and then reposted on the Twitter feed here just last night, was battling Sam Mayer for the third spot. Ended up being in fourth place there, getting his first career top 5 in his 5th or 6th series start. Very early in his career, just running part-time. He's been kind of shuffled in the order a little bit here with, sharing the ride with other drivers that have kind of cycled through the 32 team here this year. But regardless, I think that he's very impressive, and it'd be wonderful to see somebody else in the Green family, from Jeff Green and David Green and Mark and the others in the family there. He's definitely picked up where they left off. And again, with his road course experience through the Trans Am program, which is where the Peterson angle of it is there, he looked absolutely amazing out there. He was getting into the top 10. He was getting into the top 5. And it was frustrating that the CW didn't really talk about him hardly at all. There were a couple times they kind of showed his car there, and they didn't really talk about him. And much like with Kyle Larson today, showed some deference to the leader there too. It was very entertaining listening to his radio leading into the last restart there, and listening to them say, don't go up there and wreck Zilic. He's one of the championship guys and all that. You don't want to do that, and I get that. But he said, yeah, go give him hell. Go race him hard. And he did that. They had a really good battle into turn 1. He ends up slotting into line there in the infield portion. Then you get a last lap caution there that froze the field, and he still gets the second place run. I thought that was tremendous. Easily a career run. Another top 5 finish for him there. Hopefully he gets some more rides there with the Anderson and Peterson team, and maybe that opens up even more opportunities going forward. I think this is exactly the kind of talent that should be focused on in the Xfinity Series. And again, not just overshadowed by the playoffs and Cup regulars and whatever else it'll be. Although, again, no Cup regulars in this race here. But regardless, it's showing a proper direction that we're taking in this sport, and hopefully that gets talked about. And in the same respect here, too, Kaz Grala getting in the 4th place finish. Glad to see that his interviews were caught on pit road. I think it was Matt Weaver or somebody else was catching that there on pit road. But good to see there. Grala as well is a driver that is there. I think back to 2019? Or was it 2017? I think it was, 2018, I guess, when he drove the Fury Race Cars team. He lost his ride at the James Whitner team. They had to cobble something together. They were piecing together show cars from the Stewart Haas team, and doing well, getting top 5s, getting some good finishes out there in the 61 car. You see that sticker right there in the corner here on this. That was from that. We got Rob Taylor did some drawings of his car there, And I was making sure to get those over to him there at Watkins Glen. And indeed, that Fury Race Cars team was the one that got my credentials worked out when my credentials fell through for Watkins Glen. So I was able to do the work there the first part of that weekend. So always owe a debt of gratitude to that organization out there. And I was able to get a couple of these stickers here from that. So that's why I make sure to carry that on the old laptop here. But a tremendous talent. And, talk about infield road courses. Remember, Kaz Gralla was the one that stepped in for Austin Dillon at the Daytona infield road course back during the COVID year there and got a good finish out of that. So, again, I'm so glad to see. I saw in the interview that was posted that he's just hoping that a big team, takes a chance on him and he gets some more opportunities out there, and he definitely deserves them. And the Sam Hunt team itself has been very impressive. Dean Thompson has been great as a full-timer this year. It's been wonderful for him because he's struggled so much in the truck series. He's always had a wonderful sense of humor about it, and, the last car certificates and him playing around with that there last year. But yeah, I mean, I know that behind that too has also been a lot of, some heartbreak too. There were a lot of times in that 5 truck that with Tricon that he looked like he was going to be very good, or driving with the Nice team before that. And things just, didn't quite work out. But this year, I think in that Xfinity car, more times than not, we've seen him in and around the top 10 there at the end of the day there. This time here, unfortunately, wasn't one of those cases. He ends up back in the 35th spot there after some issues at the very beginning of the race. But week to week, seems like he's been pretty good. And that team itself, it's very much part of that effort there too. So Zilich gets the win over Austin Green. Sammy Smith also did a fine job out there at the end. Kaz Gralla and Connor Mosack. Smith, of course, advancing to the next round in the Xfinity Series Championship after that just absurd delay at the end where it seemed like there really wasn't anything to really re-examine necessarily. It seemed like there was some kind of a scoring issue about where Taylor Gray was versus Jesse Love, where they actually showed the point on the track where between turns, I think it was 4 and 5, he was pretty clearly, or 3 and 4, it looked like. He was very clearly kind of running by himself, and there wasn't any kind of question of where, what position he was in. It really is unfortunate to have these last lap cautions. I've already done a video on this, and it seems like I talk about it just about every week on this show here. But, just letting these guys race to the finish, if it's at all possible, that should have been allowed at that point there. And if it wasn't safe, then they should have thrown the caution earlier. I know that there were others that were talking about this, and I definitely agree that when you had this incident between Alex Labay and another car, and they basically ran nose to nose, you could tell somebody was going to break a radiator, and there's going to be fluid on the track. At that point, there should have been a caution. And they should have been thrown earlier, would have been another overtime finish. Yeah, that would have been a mess. It probably would have screwed up some of these other runs, but it probably, under the letter of the rule, that would have been a much more fair outcome rather than waiting a lap, seeing if everybody's going to be running through the fluid and then, throwing a caution that just screws everything up there at the end. It's unfortunate with the officiating. I know there's been some personnel changes. There was that other person that was swapped out recently. And I don't know who stepped in for who or what effects that has had. But this was not a promising start to whoever's taken over there, because that was a bit messy there at the end of it. And it was also unfortunate on top of it because Alex Labay, who was involved in that incident, has never finished outside the top 15 in every Xfinity race at the Roval up to this point. And indeed was probably running inside the top 15 when that wreck happened. I don't know this for sure, but it looked like there was plenty of cars around him, so he must have been at least mid-pack at the end of it. He didn't have any mechanical issues earlier, but then he ends up dropping to the 30th place finish there at the end of the day. It ends up kind of costing that streak there too. So that was unfortunate. Still remarkable that it lasted as long as it did, but it ends up being kind of a rough day for him. Looking through more of the field there, Carson Kvapil, I was very impressed with him in this race. It seemed like he was getting run over by a few other drivers out there, but he was making some remarkable saves out there. I think we've talked about that before with him and Zilich as well, of their ability. They're just remarkable car control. And you don't usually see either of them wreck too often because of that, because they just kind of get knocked loose out there. And with the aggressive package that the Xfinity Series still has, that's no small accomplishment. And I think he's done a fine job of that there too. Even though the 15th place finish is not the best run out there, I don't think that necessarily reflects about how well he was doing, but again, still keeping the fenders on it there and bringing it home too. Also very pleased for the Haas factory team. Enthused about both their cars making the next round of the playoffs. That's a team that I've really enjoyed following this year. Playoffs or no playoffs, just how well they've been running. Sam Mayer probably should have had a half dozen wins this year for how often he's been in and around the top 5 this year. It's just that Connor Zilic and Justin Allgaier are just as good as they'd ever be. The JR Motorsports cars are just fast, and the Joe Gibbs guys are always going to be up there too. And even seeing Brandon Jones winning here in recent weeks too is just showing how difficult and crowded the top 5 can get. And, Sheldon Creed still having some good runs here and there. He was just outside the top 10 this week, finishing in the 11th spot. Hoping to still get his first win. And, hey, he now finds himself in a position where he was eliminated from the playoffs last year, now makes it to the next round. Could he possibly do a walk-off like we saw out of Daniel Hartbreak, old Daniel Hemrick, a couple of years ago at Phoenix? We saw that 0-0 win the championship before when it was Stuart Haas racing and Cole Custer behind the wheel. Could we see a repeat of that with Creed coming up at Phoenix and potentially winning his first race? Going to be very difficult to do that. And I suppose we should be thankful for that being the case because Connor Zilic has put together an absolutely remarkable season with a number of wins that he's had as a rookie and branching out onto the ovals and coming back from 2 injuries. He is more than deserving of winning this championship. And now we're seeing plenty of debates about this coming up here. Even just today, retweeting the message that Mark Martin had talking with Kenny Wallace about, it's like, well, this is the point system and, this is, things can happen. It's not always the person that wins the most races that wins the most championships. And then Mark Martin responding that, well, what if he wins more points though? What if he has more points that he's earned this season, he loses the championship? Obviously it's a winner take all at the end of the year. That basically negates any points you get up to that point. But Mark's point is very, very relevant because, by any measure, Zilic would be the champion this season. He's been very consistent. Obviously, the top 5 streak he's had, minimizing DNFs, again, coming back from injuries to make sure he was up there, even winning races he didn't finish with Parker Kligerman winning in his place there at Daytona a couple months ago. It's going to be interesting to see. But of course, when the winner take all race, there is that 3 out of 4 chance that it could be somebody else up there. Maybe you have a situation like we saw with Chase Briscoe in 2020, where he also had a remarkable season and positioned himself to be very rightfully the champion that year. But wasn't a factor at Phoenix and loses the championship. It's a very rough deal, but we'll find out. Waiting to hear back on my credentials here for Phoenix here in a couple weeks. So fingers crossed on that. But hoping to do some coverage there for you guys there next month. And we'll find out all together and see what the story is going to be on that end there too. Haven't mentioned the last place battle in this one. This was a little bit more open and shut in this case. A couple other drivers at the back of the field. Dean Thompson struggling early. Harrison Burton going behind the wall for a few laps with the car breaking down and unfortunately missing the next round of the playoffs as a result. But Preston Pardis ends up with your last place finisher. First time the number 50 has finished last in an Xfinity race since 2013, with Danny Efland, who, as somebody pointed out online, is in fact a crew chief now. In fact, the crew chief for Harrison Burton at the AM Racing team. So an interesting bit of turnaround there for all that's changed in the last dozen years here. But Preston Pardis ends up with the first last place finish for the Pardis Racing team. Pardis himself had finished last for Mario Gosselin at Portland last year. So 2 last place finishes for him. Josh Williams, Daniel Dye, Dean Thompson, and Harrison Burton completing the bottom 5 there at the same time. We do have to talk about the other heartbreak there among the playoff contenders for Austin Hill, missing the championship, cut off by 21 points, the exact amount of points that he lost after his penalty in Indianapolis for wrecking Eric Almirola in a very dangerous situation at turn 4 at Indianapolis. I suppose things have balanced out in the wash there on that. That was an outrageous deal in Indianapolis, and it's something that he was even still in a stone's throw of the championship, especially after the issues he had at Bristol as well. He does miss the cut, and it's down to the next round for those guys coming up to Las Vegas next week there too. Other drivers through here. Sam Mayer, 19th, but does just enough to get to the next round there. Ryan Sieg, we didn't really see as much out of him this week, which is too bad. Sage Karam getting some criticism about the flat tire at the end that brought out a late race caution and forced things kind of reset. I don't really have any problems with that. I mean, flat tires happen, especially for, again, how physical this track is and how demanding it is on the equipment. I think that could have just as easily happened to anybody. So I don't get the anger there. And again, the incident there at the end of turn 7 is just a pinball machine with people getting knocked around there too. So that's another kind of part to look at the same time. But a solid Xfinity race, and I'm thrilled for Austin Green and some of the other drivers that were having good runs up there. There were a lot of guys that were just kind of hanging on by their fingernails at the end, like Sam Mayer, like Sheldon Creed. I think that it was a solid race though. Again, maybe not the best one, but a decent one there too. Let's see. I'm going to get a little bit of water, and then we'll talk about the Truck Series race, and we'll do some trivia. And I also have some updates on next video for the channel here, too. So we'll get into that. So stay tuned here. I'm just going to put the mute on for just a moment. Alrighty. Okay, so we kind of blitzed right through that there too. Oh, thank you for the super chats here, folks. We'll get caught up on those there too in a moment here. So I do appreciate that. Alrighty. Let's get into the Truck Series race here as well. And what a drive for Corey Heim. I mean, my goodness, to set the record, to break Greg Biffle's record, the single season win record, with the 10th victory of the year, to do it after a first corner cluster in the first corner. And I hate that people miss this because, I mean, clearly there was not that many people in the crowd, and the way that the race was scheduled, like middle of the day, especially here on the West Coast, I mean, my goodness, I was working from home that day, and it started during my lunch break. So I was able to kind of have that, on at the beginning and then kind of have it in the background from there. I mean, tricky. I don't get why it wasn't at night. If they couldn't just make it a night race, start at that time, and then have more people have a chance to see it, because they missed a hell of a show there on that one. I think that was a really interesting race. You get the race starts, and at the very first corner, you have a pile up between 3 of the top 4 qualifiers. You get Corey, Grant Enfinger gets in the back of Lane Riggs, who gets into Corey Heim and stuffs all of them into the outside wall. Brent Cruz is right in the middle of it, gets by, leads most of the race, leading 56 of 70 laps, looking to give the number 1 its first win since 2009. Kudos to Jamie Little for that statistic. That was actually some good information to kind of provide here at the same time. And then watching the rest of the race play out and see Heim try to work his way back up there. It looked like it was just cosmetic damage. Although they said the same of Lane Riggs as well. It turned out Riggs had much more serious damage all the way to the A-frames on the suspension, and he was left just kind of limping around there, finishing in the 21st spot there, although still on the lead lap somehow at the same time. So, not to sell Front Row Motorsports short in their response to this incident as well. But Heim, there's just too much driver and too much truck working his way back through the field there. Got all the way up to second, tracking down Brent Cruz at the end. Would have been really interesting to see if he actually had enough time to get back around him. But of course, we had a late race caution. Cruz runs out of fuel, has to come down pit road. Heim gets the lead. And Cruz gets back from 6th to 2nd because there's another pile up in turn 7 that puts Cruz right back up to 2nd and almost back on the Heim's rear bumper. Made for a wonderful battle there at the end. I would say that was probably the race of the weekend there. So not just Heim doing the worst to first. I believe he was only about as far back as 34th. He didn't quite get last because Ben Rhodes had his wreck at the very beginning and ended up being your last place finisher, but very close to it. Getting back up there. Remarkable. Just a remarkable run out there too. Again, staking his claim on a championship he as well should be able to clinch here in a couple of weeks. Just far and away, the best driver in the truck series this year. Just remarkable. I was just kind of gobsmacked. I thought, he got that wreck at the beginning. It's like, okay, here's one where he's probably not going to win, and then my goodness, he had Riggs involved in it too. It's like, okay, somebody else is going to find their way up there and pull this off. As it could be Giovanni Ruggiero or somebody else trying to work this out. Ultimately, he gets back up there and does it. And Cruz, though, I know Brent Cruz has got to be disappointed. He certainly looked that way in his interview. But my God, he had a career race out there. His day will come. He'll find a day out there that he'll be good and pull off a win there. We've seen a lot of drivers have some good runs in that all-star entry at the Tricon entry. Again, just not quite the day today. Or that day on Friday, rather. But again, a fine showing that he had there, too. So Brent Cruz in 2nd, Giovanni Ruggiero in 3rd, Raja Caruth in 4th, fine run for him as well. And Connor Zilich, part of his double-duty effort with Xfinity, coming back into the 5th spot there, too. So a very good stacked field there of competitors on the road course there back on Friday. Josh Bilicki, very good in the 6th spot there. Again, beginning his triple header weekend, getting the 41 truck into the show for Al Neese. Had the names of many supporters as well on the rear cover there of the number 41 truck, getting back from a spin to finish in the 6th spot. So a fine effort for him. I believe that's his career best run, if I remember from working on the article the other day. Enfinger comes back from the first lap incident to finish in 7th. Ty Majeski, Tyler Ankrum, and Connor Mosack ran out your top 10 there as well. Your last place battle, this one was much more open and shut than even the Xfinity race. Ben Rhodes absolutely clobbered the wall in the infield portion of the track, just ran a little too high in the corner, and ends up being his first last place run in several years, I believe about 5-6 years. So kind of an interesting deal there for him. But really couldn't fix the truck at that point. They showed him in the infield, done for the afternoon there as well. Parker Kligerman with some suspension issues on Charlie Henderson's truck, dropped him back to the 35th spot. And both of them passed by Carter Fartuk, who is going to be your last place finisher in this race after missing the start. Had some kind of catastrophic mechanical issue there that kept them from going. And it ended up being traced back to the fuel cell. Apparently there was some water in the fuel, and the team actually said over the radio that they actually filled their fuel tanks at the shop before leaving. So there must be some issue like water seepage into their fuel storage facilities or something else that's allowing water into their fuel canisters or something that's happening. But regardless, that ended up being a very costly situation. They lost several laps. It took very long into the race for them to climb back out of last place and get past Ben Rhodes, but ultimately did get 24 laps completed before the engine let go and dropped him out in the 34th spot there. But I think did a decent job. Kudos to the Josh Rayom's effort there for getting that truck back out there. When they really, they could have very easily just, dusted their hands of it and said, well, that's just not our day today. But no, I think they did a fine job out there. And they even gained a couple of spots and that they wouldn't have if they just kind of stopped at that point. And it sounded like that was the same issue that kept them from practicing and qualifying as well. So I think at that point, they probably just wanted to shake the truck down and, try to get some laps just to see what they had. And that's still something, especially for a small organization like that. If you can get any notes out there and also make sure that the Broll Mountain Vineyard sponsorship on board gets some visibility. And, I don't know how many people they had on board or whatever was out there. It seemed like that sponsor came together kind of late in the week. I'm sure they were happy to at least see their truck for a little bit in this race, whoever was there at the time. But Carter, again, the 34th spot there, dropping Ben Rhodes to last place in this one here. And the first time the 99 has finished last in a truck race at the road course since Watkins Glen, I believe back in 96 when Chuck Bound had a issue out there, I believe a blown engine in that race. Josh Reaume and Andre Perez de Lara round out the bottom 5. Unfortunate deal for Perez de Lara there, spending in some time in the garage area, but finishing the race about 16 laps down there, the checkered flag. There were some concerns about Tony Breininger and the late race mechanical issue there. Her and Tanner Gray dropping out there in the closing laps of the race. I don't think there's any there about, getting Corey Heim that win. I think Heim was already tracking down Brant Cruz. And in fact, Cruz was, of course, another Tricon truck. I'm sure they would have rather, they were pretty happy to have anybody win that race, that, looking that it was going to be pretty certainly, one of the Tricon trucks. In fact, they ended up finishing the top 3 with Cruz in second and Giovanni Ruggiero in third. So I don't see anything, suspicious on that, absent any further evidence to the contrary. We saw Chris Wright get back into the truck series, ended up having a couple incidents there and dropped back to the 26th place finish there. Corey LaJoy had a late race pit stop that dropped him out of contention back in 18th for the Spire effort. Caden Honeycutt, my heart just breaks for him. He swept both stages. He looked very strong out there, trying to get the best run he can, and making sure to advance further in the championship. But he just looked beside himself in his interview. It's just like he doesn't know what they need to do to try to get the next round and try to get some wins. And I'm sure they're trying to, we're hearing about Stuart Friesen potentially coming back in these last couple of races. We're hearing about the same over at the Josh Reaume effort about Frankie Muniz coming back. I would anticipate maybe Phoenix, given the fact that Frankie's home track is the Phoenix track there as well. We'll see what happens. That'll be another story to chronicle if that does end up happening. Caden Honeycutt's just pounding on the door of getting his first win and looked very strong out there and did what he needed to do to get the points out there. Just didn't quite come out in the wash there to be a contender for the win itself. But we'll see if things change here in the next couple of weeks. We don't have the Truck Series next week. Next week, we just have the Xfinity and Cup Series in Las Vegas. And then the final 3 races of the season are going to be the round of the same round of 8, round of 4 transition at the end of the year. And we'll see how everything shakes out, not only with the big NASCAR championships, but also with the LASCAR championships as well. We're getting pretty close to clinching scenarios here in the last section there. So again, solid truck race though. Seeing Heim rally back and under those circumstances, that was pretty interesting at the same time too. So hopefully things shake out there for him in a couple of weeks, and we'll find out what the story is going to be for him as well. So looking through this, let's see. Yeah, I'm seeing Colby Evans tweet here as well. Yeah, sad part is when playoff drama is taken away from yet another great performance by SVG. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was an impressive run up there. Good battles up front. It's time to get races. It's time to have races be celebrated for being good races, just in and of themselves. And the championship is just something separate and apart. Just pull it apart a little bit and let it kind of be its own thing. And maybe the championship race is the last race of the year. Maybe it's a couple races before. I don't like when everybody's bringing this up as the boogeyman. It's like, oh, everybody's going to complain when the championship's clinched with 3 races to go. No, they're not, because the person that, if somebody's clinching the championship with 3 races to go, they well and truly deserve to be the champion. I grew up seeing Jeff Gordon clinch it at Rockingham, not even showing up at Atlanta. And indeed, Matt Kenseth did the same thing when he clinched it at Rockingham when it was the next to last race going into Homestead there. That's something like, lap in the field. That's something like, winning the pole with a new track record. That's like that extra little spring in your step that rewards excellence. There was a great interview. I think it was, I forget which crew chief it was. If you remember it in the chat, let me know. But there was a crew chief for one of the Truck Series efforts out there that mentioned that the current playoff system rewards mediocrity. And it's a bold and kind of a brutal way of putting it, but I think an accurate way of putting it too. It does. What it does is you're letting everybody catch up again. It's like, oh, you're doing too well. You got to let these people catch up. I've interpreted it as this restart fascination. That it's got to be restarts in everything. It's going to be restarts with the stage racing. It's got to be restarts with these eliminations and regroupings and so forth. The regular season versus the playoff season. It's silly, and that is the problem. You are rewarding mediocrity. You're allowing these people who should be further back in points and not a factor in it right back into the picture again. Where there's already enough factors that could bring people into contention anyway. If the championship leader, if you got a guy that's winning, for example, 8 races and has 4 finishes of 37th or worse, for example, that person's probably going to get caught and they're probably not going to win the championship. And that's the way the system should be. Whether we're using the 2003 and earlier points, whether we're using the 2011 points, or whether we have stages or not, still should be the same case either way. And that's where we need to get back to. And hopefully we are. We're not going to hear anything about that till after Phoenix. That's what it sounds like the word is from NASCAR. But, again, hopefully we're heading that direction, because I think a race like today would be very interesting. Even though if it played out exactly the same way, it would be interesting, like how it would be received as a full season championship. Just back things off just a little bit and let each race be celebrated for what it is. And I think that the viewers and the fans in the stands, I think, would enjoy it much more because now there's not all this other stuff that's going on. I think the thing that NASCAR, one of the many things that NASCAR is kind of underestimated is how difficult it is to track a championship in these playoff scenarios from the grandstands. It's the same reason that group qualifying doesn't really work. And why single car qualifying, even if it's boring from some people's perspective, why it's so much easier to follow. It's like, okay, this guy goes by, here's where he is in the rankings. Here's where this guy goes by, here's where he is. But basically when you have like a practice session, you have a group qualifying session, you have a group of people out there and they're running over each other and it's over in like 2 minutes. And it's like, okay, well, where did anybody end up? And then you just kind of you don't have that moment by moment people slotting into the chart there. You have just a whole group and then it just ends up with this over here. Like all this other stuff doesn't seem to really matter. And the playoff system is another example of that. You could have the graphics on the screen and show the cutoff line and who needs to be where, and you can say, oh, this is exciting. You're looking here, you're looking there. It's really tricky. I mean, when you already have pit strategy to track at the same time and stage points and all that, you don't need that. Again, I do think that you could probably cut out half the gimmicks at the very least and have a sport that's much easier to follow, much easier to understand. And I think that would set things on a course towards being easier to market, because that's part of it too. That affects the marketing of the sport and the storytelling of these champions and these race winners and what that takes. And it's why 25 years later, I can remember, who won, this Dover race or something versus who won Dover even this year. That's kind of the element of it. So we'll see where things head out. I think that'll be interesting to find out. Just like restarts. Yep, I'm seeing all the comments on that. That's exactly where we found ourselves, isn't it? We're kind of in this restart singularity. But we'll see. Maybe we're coming out of it. We might be finding that out in short order here. So we'll see. Alrighty. Let's see. So we kind of went through the other 3 races here. We'll get into super chats here and trivia here in a little bit. While I have, let's see, let me go over my notes here too. I know I had a couple things on my notes for this week. Yeah, I guess we can get into that. Maybe we'll get into that in a little bit here too. Little something here. I brought my Jerry Nadeau shirt out here for today. Definitely wanted to wear white. I know that tonight is the rivalry game for the Bills playing against the Patriots. So I did pick up one of these. I can't justify picking up one of the jerseys. Those are getting too expensive on my end, man. But I did want to pick up one of the hats here, so I definitely wanted to bring that out here for something a little different for the show tonight. I do plan on watching that when that starts up here a little bit later tonight. And if they're trailing, am I going to turn it off this time? No, I'm going to try to make sure to stick with it this time around here, and hopefully they put on a good show here as well. So I know it's not a football show, but there's that aspect too. So I definitely wanted to bring that out here this week. Let's see. How should I do this? Let me see. Let me go ahead and I'll go ahead and bring the Trivial Pursuit deal out, and I'll have you guys pick which category you'd like, and that'll give some more time for people to pick which questions we want, and we'll do those too. I do have some more things here, but I'll go ahead and go into that and the stuff about the videos here shortly. But again, for those of you new to the show, you guys have a smaller group here, so you're probably more of our regulars here. But we'll bring out the late 90s Trivial Pursuit, Tiger Electronics deal, and we'll do a couple questions here to wrap up the show here a little bit. The categories, once again, are NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. Once again, NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. Those are the categories. Go ahead and let me know which one you want in the chat, and we'll do that there at the same time. Yep. Yeah, I got the Nadu shirt from 2000, the Michael Hulligan scheme, still one of my favorite schemes out there. Again, I always like paint schemes that use white in a creative and interesting way, and this scheme always stands out in my mind as well here too. I think I'll get into the phone news here a little bit. I'm going to do the stuff on the videos first. So let's see. Got a Zilich and SVG win. Oh, happy birthday, Death Killer, right now. I see your comment here as well, so very good. Yeah, so good news. So finally, and it's taken a ton of work. I was very surprised, but well worth it, though. The next episode of Rise of the Field Fillers is now in the Patreon. So if you are a $5 and up member and you're looking for something else to watch tonight, after the Bills game perhaps and after the stream or whatever the case may be, the next episode of Rise of the Field Fillers is in the Patreon. I posted it last night. The video is just under 2 hours long, 1 hour, 55 minutes, which is on the longer side for Rise of the Field Fillers. So it is going to be, the advanced access period is going to be at least a week, I would say. So it probably is going to be aired until sometime later this month. But it is in the Patreon. I want to make sure everybody that has access to it has a chance to check it out. And also make sure that, if it needs any tweaks, I want to be able to make sure I can fix that before it goes public there as well. But it was a very enjoyable script to work on. I did not get a chance to interview Greg himself, but Greg Sack's career is very, very interesting. Brian Hallman at the BRH Racing Archives provided some excellent pictures. I tried to use every one of them that he shared. I think we had about, I think about like 30 or 40 pictures in there in that one from different periods in his career. Again, as I mentioned on last week's show, it's not just on his team from 2004, although that is going to be a big portion of it there, about 2/3 of the way in the video, but it is really more about his entire career, and that field filler deal there is a portion of it there. But very interesting. And of course, if you remember Greg Sacks at any point in his career, if I asked any three of you, you probably think of a different car that comes to mind that he drove in his career. And that's very much true, because he drove for a ton of different teams, including his own organization. And that's going to be in there. So that video is going to be coming up very soon. Working on trying to kind of get videos produced a little bit quicker here without sacrificing quality. So that one is going to be coming up next here on this channel here very soon as well. And I got some other scripts. I have script on 500 Days coming together. Looking to get the first half of that script done very soon. I need to get the second half of that done. I'd love to get that script finished by the time we get to Phoenix here later this month. I think that might be possible. So hopefully we can get closer to recording that into the off season and get that going pretty soon. I have a couple other scripts that are very close to recording as well on some shorter subjects. And I think that'll be something for you guys to check out too. So yeah, we're kind of moving along here on that and getting that going there too. But yes, the next episode of Rise of the Field Fillers, episode 14 on Daytona Speed Incorporated and the career of Greg Sacks. That will be the next video on this channel here. Again, advance access for members that are $5 and up in the Patreon, patreon.com/LastCarOnBrock. Speaking of the Patreon, also this weekend, I ordered the door magnet for our upcoming coverage at Phoenix. It is going to be a bright yellow one that's going to be honoring the career of Matt Crafton, who is going to retire from full-time competition after the Halloween race coming up at the end of this month. So that's going to be kind of the theme of it. If you want to see the design, and also if you're in the Patreon, members $1 and up, you can check out that post there as well. And that magnet will be coming in a little bit later this month, and we'll have that on there. And of course, if you want to join the Patreon, and if you join between now and when we get back from the Phoenix trip there at the beginning of November, we'll have your name written on that magnet to join on there. We'll take pictures of it, of course, along the way on our trip back down south there for that event. And you'll also be entered in the same drawing as everybody else for that magnet. And this will be the first time I have some playing cards that I'm using now for everybody's name in the drawing. So that'll make it much easier to be able to get a variety of winners for that too. Hopefully I'll pick up some hero cards as well. We'll have a second and third place prize as well, in addition to the magnet. We'll see how that goes at the same time. But yeah, that's coming up in short order. I have to kind of keep reminding myself that it's not too far away, but very excited about that and bring you guys some more coverage there for the championship weekend at Phoenix. What very well could be the last winner-take-all playoff race at Phoenix. It'll be our first time back there in a couple of years. We weren't there last year. Last time we were there was Christopher Bell's brake failure there in 2023, or no, 2023. And that picture is the background also of the door magnet on that as well. So, yeah, that's going to be coming up here very shortly. So an exciting time of the year. We'll see how things play out there at the same time. So we'll find out. Yeah, only 4 races to go. There you go. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting at the same time there. So we'll see what the story is on that. Yeah, I think that's mostly what I have on the side of the videos. I will talk about, okay, I'll go ahead and dovetail. I'll do this, and I'll do the super chats during the trivia portion here in a little bit. So hang on there, folks, on that. Again, big thanks to those of you on those. So we'll jump into that there too. Couple bits of news I had on this. Let's see. There it is on here. Hang on. Open the wrong document. Let me get that there too. Ryan Vargas going through a really interesting thing in his career right now. He's going to compete at Circuit Zolder next week in the Whelen Euro Series, going back overseas. There was also the news that he's going to be driving the El Toro Loco monster truck in a couple of Monster Jam events a little bit later this year. So kudos to him on that. I love that he posted this picture of him enjoying meeting with some monster truck drivers when he was a kid, and now being able to compete in that series. That's what it's all about. And that's wonderful to see. So I think that's going to be really interesting. I'm sure he'll do some stuff on social media to follow along with that. And again, kind of an interesting cooperation between NASCAR and Monster Jam here as well. You remember the Gravedigger truck that Kevin Harvick ran a couple of years ago. You remember Camden Murphy, who I think ran, was it Pirate's Curse, I believe? Then in the Monster Jam circuit that ran some truck series races for Nemco, including on the road courses. He did the Daytona Infield Road Course, I remember once. So yeah, so a bit of cooperation between the two series here at the same time. The other big news story to certainly talk about this week would be the latest developments in the NASCAR lawsuit. And I was posting a couple tweets about this the other day. And at this point here, the latest development is NASCAR pushing for summary judgment, and which is a significant development in this case. I know that 2311 and Front Row Motorsports attorney is looking ahead to the hearing date or the trial date in the beginning of December. But this is a big movement here by NASCAR trying to say that, okay, because this could potentially be something that ends the case in its tracks right now, if it goes through. And I'm sure, the attorney's got to, zealously represent their client. But this is not a bump in the road. This could potentially be something that just stops it right there. And then, who knows what happens, from that point there. I mean, in terms of the charters or whatnot. I thought it was very interesting that NASCAR presented these statements from various team owners that did not join in the lawsuit, including a couple of team owners who do not presently have charters, such as BJ McLeod and Carl Long. I'm intrigued by that, certainly. It makes me wonder how much more is going on behind the scenes, whether it's positioning to pick up any of the charters that 2311 and Front Row are not currently using, or, what change there may be in the system going forward. I know there were questions about, just what all this means, really. And it's really hard to boil that down very clearly, but it's basically there's the concept of judicial efficiency, and, whether or not, not every case that's brought, to court is always going to have a trial date, and not everyone is going to reach the trial date either. And there is always that system. I mean, you kind of want to look at it kind of like the playoff system in a way that, some things don't quite reach the finish line there. Sometimes they settle, sometimes the summary judgment is granted, sometimes, it's just thrown out. I mean, it could be any number of things here. But this is, I'll be interested to see what response the 2311 and Front Row's claim is going to be. Because the thing that's always kind of bothered me in this case up to this point, and again, I was interested in kind of putting some feelers out here the other night when these statements were put out there. It's like, okay, these statements were put out saying, okay, this is our support for the charter system, and we're, it's the best deal for what we have, and this is what we've been able to do with it, and this is how long we've been in the sport, and we continue to want to be in the sport. And it's like, okay, and then, the attorneys for the plaintiffs came out and said, okay, well, we're not against the charter system. It's like, okay, yeah, it's like you understand that charters need to be around, and these teams have kind of built their business model around them, even though they haven't been around for most of the sport's history. But okay, let's set that aside. And now it's been a few years, and these teams have built a business around having them. And now they have a worth, and now that you can sell them, and then that there's a worth to that too. That's an asset that's worth more than, even the assets of the team itself, which is interesting. But undoubtedly that's happening. Okay, so there's that. But at the same time, it's like, okay, they don't want to get rid of the charter system. It's like, okay, well, you want a better deal. Okay, well, these charters were negotiated for, and I know there's a lot of question about the nature of those negotiations. That seems to be very central to this. And, okay, so, we heard earlier that, these teams were, okay, they weren't happy with how the negotiations went. And it basically came down to a point where teams were just said, okay, look, this is the deal. You sign off on it. If you don't sign off it by tomorrow or a couple days from now, you're going to lose your charter. And that's it, period, full stop. And now you're back, and then you're an open team, and we sell the charter to somebody else or whatever, and and if you think back to the Derek Cope book, yeah, I mean, there were some similar strong arm tactics that have been done in the past with Derek Cope's team in Starcom Racing, when they were going to enforce the bottom 3 in the top 35 rule and talk about hey, if you don't finish higher in points, we're going to sell that charter. You're not going to get anything for it. And then they basically had no choice but to sell out of the sport. Thankfully, they've been able to get back in the Xfinity series. So okay, if that's the situation, and and NASCAR says it's otherwise, and says, oh no, we had long negotiations, and and these went forward, and we tried to do this, and we were hearing back and forth. Then okay, you have a triable issue of material fact. You have, again, see, it's hard to make this simple. But that would be enough to overcome summary judgment. That means you would move forward, and we go on to the next thing, and maybe we still have a trial date. But NASCAR, I think, is still trying to put this forward, saying oh, well, this is somehow replacing the negotiations, or they're trying to do this instead of negotiating. It seems like that's kind of the crux here, is okay, what was going on there? What were these communications? How much of a chance were they given to negotiate new terms? We're not really hearing a whole lot about that. The other part that we're not hearing about, and the part that really frustrates me, is this assertion that, okay, there's anti-competitive practices and it's an antitrust and there's a monopoly, and it's like, okay, you can say that and you can put forward a case, but what's the alternative? What is the alternative here? What is the alternative business model that you're putting out there? That the language from these teams is, we want to give these teams a better deal. We want to give these teams a better situation. It's like, okay, well, you sound like you have a different business model in mind, that whatever NASCAR is putting forward or what this charter deal was going to put forward was not going to be sustainable, that it needed to be something different. But where are the specifics? You have to be very specific at this point, because, and you damn well have to be when you're putting this on trial. You better have something you're going to be pointing at. You can't just be like, see, they're doing this. See, they're doing this. It's like, no. Okay, what are you doing? What are you doing, and why are you not signing off on this? If you have, what does winning look like to you? That's always a phrase I always come back to all the time. If you're going to be winning one of these arguments here, you have to make it clear what winning looks like to you. What is this? What is going to be the result of this? And I think I feel like that's just kind of been overlooked. That we've been arguing. There's been so much argument about how this agreement was negotiated, but not the actual terms of that agreement. Like, let's get into that. Let's actually get into that. And, because then you could show that to a jury or a judge or whoever they're going to be presenting this in front of. And you could say, look, if we did it this way, then, this would be different. If we wanted this, and this, we made clear to them that we want this, and this, but they wouldn't let us have that. And we didn't have enough to really kind of get them to see things our way. That would be much more persuasive. It can't be in the abstract. It can't be this situation there where you're just saying, oh, it's antitrust, it's anti this, it's a monopolistic practice. You got to be way more specific. And I get you don't want to show all your cards because it's a strategy and you're looking down the road here, but you can't overdrive your headlights here, because if summary judgment goes through, that's it. It's game over. So they got to treat this very seriously, and I'm sure they are, and I hope they are. Because this is big boy stuff. You got to really get in there and make sure that it's going properly here. But because I'm trying to be as open as I can to both sides' view of it. And I'm trying not to be too partial to one side or the other. But I have to say, to this point, I've found myself much more understanding what NASCAR's perspective of this is than the teams. And I feel like that's just because, again, I don't know if the teams are just trying to not give away the store already at the beginning here with what their strategy is, or what specifically they've had problems with. But what they've been pointing to so far, like the thing where they were pointing out the PowerPoints about like NASCAR's protocol for if there's like a labor strike or something like that, and that there would be vertical consolidation as a potential option. It's like, okay, yeah, that's interesting, but we're not talking about a strike. That's not what's happening here. We're talking about a issue between, these teams, whether or not they agree to this new renewal of a contract with the sport over these charters. I didn't see the relevance of that. It's like, okay, yeah, that's interesting. Okay, it doesn't surprise me that they have a protocol in place for that, because this is NASCAR's business. This is what they do. If the drivers strike, what, they're just going to fold up their tents and then, not put a show on? No, we know they're not going to do that. They didn't do that in 1969, and they're certainly not going to do that now. So these are the concerns I have with it. And again, I apologize for going too far down the road here on this, because, it does concern me, because I feel like I feel like there's some opportunities not being taken entirely by the teams to really make their point clear. And I think they're relying too much on, I don't know. I think they're relying too much on being able to present this to a jury, but they better have something to show them. And if we're only seeing, if it's only seeming this way because we're only seeing a little bit of it, then yeah, heck, I'll be the first to be like, okay, well, yeah, that changes things, for sure. But it's going to have to be more than what I've seen so far, honestly, for me personally. I can't help but just go with my gut on this. It doesn't feel to me yet like it's going in the drivers in the 2311 in front row's direction. And that's rough. I hate that. I hate that for both of them. I think both those teams do a lot of good in this sport, and I want them to get a fair shot as best they can. But I'm not sold on their strategy yet. I'm just not. And maybe things will come to pass that will change that view. That's certainly possible. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. And yeah, again, as to the Carl Long and the BJ McLeod ones, I thought that was interesting. But again, there could be some other wheels going on there between, certainly you got open teams that want to get charters, and there's a finite number of them, and that's part of the system. And what is going to happen? We've had these charters pulled from 2311 in front row, and we've had NASCAR agree that they're not going to sell them. But, again, what are the terms of that? How long is that going to go? Where are they going to go? Are they just going to run with, we've seen them run with just 30 charters and an increased number of open spots and all that, and also assuring them that they're not going to be bumped out of the field. But how long is that going to go? Is that just going to go forever and ever? No. These are the concerns. So again, as I've said, I've said this, before on whenever this legal aspect comes up. I'm not an attorney. I have a law degree. I've have that background. All I can comment on is just what it kind of looks like and what it kind of reminds me of from that perspective there. But as to how it's going to play out or what legal advice they should take, that's up to them and their own parties there. I can just be a spectator on the sidelines like you guys there, but I can't help but when I see stuff like this here, just how it feels at this point. And it may feel different. It may feel different tomorrow for all I know. And if it does, I'll be the first to say it, but we'll see how it's going. But yeah, I don't know what it looks like, and I don't know what these teams have up their sleeve, because I'm not impressed. Honestly, I will say it. I will say it full stop. I am not impressed with what they're showing so far, with what they're putting forward so far. There was this discussion a while back about putting a case on based on principle versus fact. This feels like a principle case, and it is hard to sell that. You got to have something. You got to hold up something. It's like, he did this on this day. It better be there, man. And going against NASCAR and the way they've operated to this point, you got to come correct. Because otherwise, boy, it's just going to be really rough. And I don't want to sound disrespectful to what they've done to this point, because it takes a lot of it honestly, and this may sound like not the right word, but it's true. It takes a lot of guts to do this. It takes a lot of bravery to step in and do this, because this is uncharted territory. We haven't seen this in NASCAR's history to this point, not to this extent, and not on this particular subject. We've seen people, attempt unionization or whatever to this point. And there's been this foothold with the RTA and everything, and the charter system, and what does that mean? And we've seen a lot of conflicts with it, with teams shutting down and teams not even being able to stay in the sport with a charter. And now we hear these other debates about how much money these teams are making and what they're taking home, and frustrations over that, and frustrations that build when you introduce new cars and have to have new technology and stuff that they got to build up in the sport. That's not easy either. It is a bold thing that they're doing. And I've talked to people, I've followed I feel like I've followed these teams during their development closely as well. And I hope for the sake of their businesses that this turns out well for them. And by extension, I hope it turns out well for the sport. It feels off at this point right now. And what I hear from NASCAR makes a lot of sense. What I hear from these teams doesn't make a lot of sense yet. But that could change. Again, we're not there yet. But yeah, I think the biggest thing they need, I'm sure they're taking the summary judgment seriously, because they should. This is not a bump in the road. They have to get past this. It may potentially move the trial date if the processing for that goes forward. But yeah, that's kind of what it looks like to me. That's what it smells like to me. So we'll see on that. So we'll find out. And again, it's anyone's guess what the sport's going to look like on the other side of this. That's the other part of it that we really don't know. And maybe that's why the sport's trying so many different things next season is, they don't know either. They don't know what this is going to look like. So that's another part of it. So I don't know how helpful that rambling was there, but it's always a difficult subject to understand there with this. And it's not, I was seeing some people that were asking, to kind of try to make this simpler. And I tried to kind of do that. But it's really not easy to do that. My dad always says, like, it's even him growing up, it's like he kind of needed a law degree to read the sports page to understand, free agents and contracts and all this, but that's part of it, so we'll see what it is, but we'll find out. But it's gonna be interesting. We're going over the waterfall here together, so we'll find out if that's gonna be the case. Let me get into super chats here, and I'll do that, and then we'll do some trivia here. In the meantime, if you guys have a comment on this, which category on the trivia here is the leader? I saw a few for tracks, but if somebody could count there and tell me which category had the most votes, I'll do that momentarily. But in the meantime, I'll do the super chats on here. Let me scroll up on that, make sure to get that on there. Bowser Jr. XD, thank you for your super chat for $4.99. The worst part of the end of the race was that Hamlin apparently said that if he knew Ross would get eliminated, he wouldn't have passed him. Oh, now that is news. That is news. I'm not aware of that. I don't know if you guys heard about that too, Bowser Jr. But yeah, though, thank you for bringing that up. Man, I did not hear Hamlin's interview. I started this about shortly after Chastain's interview there on pit road. Wow. No, I did not know that. That's very interesting. Again, these are race car drivers. I talked about this last week I still don't get why people got just so twisted about Denny Hamlin racing Bubba Wallace so hard at the end of that race. It's like, they're race car drivers. They're going to race. I don't see what the problem is with that and all that. But, I'm sure, okay, yeah, if you want this guy to win or if you want this guy to get the playoffs, I get it. But, the thing in itself, I don't see the issue there. But, yeah, in this one here, maybe Denny just saw the checkered flag and just kind of went for it. And, at some point, Derek Cope talked to me about this when I did the interview for the book. I asked him about the Days of Thunder cars when he was out there in 1990. And they had the two movie cars out there in the field with Tommy Ellis and Bobby Hamilton driving them. And I was asking him, it's like, do you remember those cars ever being in the way or, something like that? Rusty Wallace had an interview where he said that he was actually trying to slow down and be near those cars so his car would make it into the movie. I don't know if that actually worked. I don't believe it did. I know Rusty got interviewed in the movie, so there was that part of it. But Derek said no. He said it was just another car. Like when it gets to a point, I think for a race car driver, another car out there is just another car. It's just a thing to pass. You just kind of get tunnel vision and you're just going to go right past it. I will conclude, I'm sure every race car driver probably gets to that point at some point, especially late in a race where you're out there and you're just trying to get to the finish and you're exhausted and you're thirsty and you're hungry and you're just pedaling through those. I'm sure that's probably part of it. But it's not that they don't know who's in these cars. And maybe today, that it's not 1990 and you do have this playoff system and you do have eliminations. Maybe you do have drivers that are more aware of that. So maybe it is different now. I'll give Denny the benefit of the doubt. But that's an interesting quote there, Bowser. I was not aware of that. And that's heartbreaking. I hate it for Ross, but maybe they're balanced out for the Hail Melon now, I guess. I don't know. Maybe that's the way to look at it. But we'll see. Michael Jensen, my goodness, thank you for your super chat for $20. Thank you. Goodness, man. Oh, again, they're not expected, but they're always appreciated. I appreciate you guys on these super chats here. Missed the last shows because of a new job. Congratulations on the new job, Michael. Do you consider SVG's year an all-time rookie year with Stewart and Davey, etc., or does the fact it's all been road courses make it not as special with him being such a specialist? That's a very good question. To be honest, this year, I haven't put it in my mind as a rookie season. I think part of it is just the visuals of it because we don't have the rookie stripes on the cars. That sounds really petty, but I will freely admit it. I don't like that they went away from that. You know, if Mobil 1 wanted to put like their sticker, that stupid little sticker on the left side of the rear bumper, that it looks like crap. Like, I don't know why they did it. You know, especially on the bumper that's that big, you could still put rookie stripes on there. You look at some of these, you look at that guy that has a collection of bumpers with rookie stripes on them. When Pontiac had it, you could add like a little strip above the license plate holder. That would have been fine. They could have just changed the way the sticker looked. I don't know why they got rid of that, especially on this car where the rear bumper is so huge. It doesn't make any sense to get rid of it. So to me, that's kind of the feel. I have to kind of remind myself that this is Van Gisbergen's first full season. Also on top of that, the fact that he already won a race, you know, that one-off race at the Chicago Street Course before getting into the full-time Cup ride here. To me, it doesn't feel as much like it. But you're very right that it should be considered in the same one. I think it should. I think it should be compared to it. Yes, it's all road courses, and yes, he is a specialist in that sense. But kind of going back to what I said about road course specialist, you know, once you kind of have guys that are full-time in the series, you kind of lose that tag a little bit once you get that oval experience. I was just thinking about this video the other day. I know I got some people that were questioning where I said Scott Pruitt wasn't necessarily a road course ringer after the 2000 season, where he ran the full season for PPI. I still stand by that. I think you could still hire him for having peculiar road course experience, but I still distinguished him from a guy like Ron Fellows or Boris Said or Brian Simo or some of those guys that maybe only did 1 or 2 Cup races a year, that maybe did very, very limited oval starts. Boris Said in particular, doing a bit more oval starts than the others. You know, I think with Pruitt, I think he did lose that ranking. Now, this adds an extra wrinkle to it with Van Gisbergen this year because, as you said, this is his rookie season. He hasn't had that full season yet. You know, so in that sense, yeah, I mean, I think really, I think you should consider it an all-time rookie year. Certainly. I mean, certainly if we're talking about it in the same breath as Connor Zilic in the Xfinity Series, that has absolutely rewritten the record books despite his experience on road courses and him taking to the ovals even quicker than Van Gisbergen has. But yeah, I would consider, especially since it's still the Cup Series, that these are still Cup Series points races. You know, I haven't given it as much thought about what a great rookie season is really since like kind of the turn of the decade, because the new drivers that came up, they've taken to it so quickly that it's expected. It used to be that it wasn't expected to have a rookie win a race, never mind multiple races. We talked about this in the Kenny Irwin video, that you had Davey Allison with those 2 wins in 1987, how earth-shattering that was. And then you get Kenny Irwin coming along. He's struggling to even win poles or even get top 5s with the same team, a decade later. And then right after this, you had Jeff Gordon didn't win in his rookie season in 93. But then you get Tony Stewart, the rival that raced with Kenny, and he breaks Davey Allison's streak. He gets those 3 wins. And then after that, you get Matt Kenseth and Dale Jr. And after that, you get Kevin Harvick winning in his 3rd start. You get Kurt Busch on the rise, and then he wins in 2002, by which point you have Jimmy Johnson and Ryan Newman. By the time you get to that point, that's changed so much that a rookie winning multiple times in a year, you don't even keep track of it anymore. About like, oh, which one's more impressive? This guy that won 2 races in his rookie season, or this guy that won 3 races? But then, yes, you have Van Gisbergen now winning, 4 or 5 races at this point? Yeah, it's remarkable. And yeah, people want to put an asterisk on it because he's he's an exceptional road course specialist who himself has really changed the definition of what a road course specialist is. In that sense, I was grappling with that in that opinion video I did a while back too. But yeah, changed what it is as a rookie. I mean, you've had guys that are rookies that are really good at super speedways or at one kind of track or another, or they find that they're good at one track or another. But yeah, I mean, this one, it's exceptional. And yeah, I think it should be considered in the same sense. I haven't to this point, honestly. It's, I guess it would be kind of like if, Scott Speed came in 2009 going against Joey Logano for Rookie of the Year. maybe Logano was struggling and Speed was struggling, but maybe Speed won both the road courses at the end of the year. Yeah, Speed should have been Rookie of the Year at that point. That's the way I would have interpreted that. So, that's not what happened, of course, but if it did happen, yeah, that probably should have been the proper outcome. So, we'll see. But it's an interesting question, Michael, and thank you for bringing it up. I think that does deserve, I think every time you have something new and something current, I mean, it's always tempting to try to figure out where it fits in history, where it ranks. And of course, that's where all the water cooler talk comes up. Is like, yeah, it's like, is this better than this? Is this like this? And it's, in some senses, it's the same debate where you try to say, like, who's the best driver? I still think Jeff Gordon's the greatest driver I've ever seen. Some would debate that if they grew up watching Dale Earnhardt, or if they grew up watching Darrell Waltrip, or Bobby Allison, or Richard Petty, or Cale Yarborough, or anybody like that. There's always going to be some bias in just what you've experienced, what you saw firsthand. I think Jeff Gordon is incredible. I think if Jeff Gordon came out of retirement and ran Vegas this coming weekend, I would probably pick him to win because he's Jeff Gordon. I mean, I don't feel the same way about, Jimmy Johnson or some of these others here too, despite the fact that guys like Jimmy won more championships or anything like that. But again, people may have a different perspective on that at the same time. I was fortunate to see Dale Earnhardt, kind of at the tail end of his career and still being a threat, here and there. But I didn't see him really go for champions. I mean, I saw the tail end of him going for championships. I did see that in like 93, 94. But I think about the way I perceived Darrell Waltrip. I mean, this is kind of a long answer to this, but I always remember Darrell Waltrip growing up as just not being a factor. It stunned me when I was hearing about, oh, he won like 83, 84 races and all that. It's like, win. And it's like, oh no, he won 3 championships. Like, oh my God. Like the time I watched the racing, he was always getting the provisional at the back of the field, or he was driving for his own team and they were losing sponsorship and all that. And I'm like, it's like, is either him or Dave Marcus at the back of the field. But of course, that doesn't mean that, he wasn't great. It's just, I didn't have that kind of background to really fully understand that. But what we're seeing out of Van Gisbergen, yeah, it's remarkable. And it is on the same blush as what we're seeing with Zilich in the Xfinity series. And I cannot wait to get Zilich in the Cup and see how they measure against each other, because then we are going to see, who's really adapted to what. And Zilich, I think, is going to be very fascinating. So we'll see what happens. But thank you both for your super chats there as well. Beast of Metal, thank you for your super chat there for $10 here. Very much appreciated. That truck scheduling was infuriating. Going back to the Truck Series race on Friday. The only reason I got to see any of it was because I signed up for Sling to get the NHL net as cheap as possible. FS1 was part of the same bundle, and I had the phone app. Okay, interesting. So yeah, no, I mean, I get you with that. I mean, it was really bad scheduling, and I get that I guess they had to move practice and qualifying around for whatever reason, but yeah, I'm not a big fan of them having the races in the middle of the day. It seems like a lot of their Friday races have done that lately. Wasn't there another one like Dover or something that had a Friday race and it was like middle of the day like that? I know there was one that I had to just kind of have on in the background at work a while back, but there was something like that. The Sling NHL Network thing is its own infuriating saga. Long story short, Hulu has never been negotiated with that league for their in-house network, which means I've missed 10 to 15 games a year. Oh, that's rough. For my favorite team, the Penguins, finally gave in and took a real look at services of NHL Net when I saw Fleury's special preseason appearance, and with the Pens as on the channel, and found Sling Select and Sports Extra was the cheapest option that had the channel, $31 a month. I'm sure there are NASCAR fans who feel certain kinship reading this story out, knowing how disparate the current TV detail has turned out to be. 4 groups, 6 channels, only 2 OTA, just to watch the Cup races. Yeah, I'm glad you reached that conclusion on that. I was reaching about the same point with that. I mean, I grew up at a time where you had races that were on broadcast TV, races that were on cable, and you had kind of a mix of those, and there were multiple different channels, and you just kind of had to know where to look, and you had to kind of look at the TV guide or the online TV or the old screen with like the scrolling TV guide in the background to figure out which channel to go to and all that, and then that would get complicated if you had weather delays and everything on top of it. It was challenging. But you found a way to kind of figure it out because everybody kind of had the same cable package, unless you had like premium, but they really weren't on premium channels. But you can more or less figure it out. Now with the streaming stuff, yeah, it's a mess, and it's unfortunate, and it adds an extra element on top of having kind of weird scheduling, like the truck race this week, and Beast of Metal pointed out. Yeah, trying to find out the right combination of, the right sports package to do. It doesn't really fit in any one column. It's not like Formula One, where it's like it's always kind of in one group, and everybody can find the Sky Sports deal with all that, and how all that's kind of linked together. I like having multiple different broadcast groups in there because there should be some competition. I don't feel like that's actually happening yet. It's starting to, because you got like Lee Diffie, there and having some better play-by-play, and the universal, near universal excitement about Amazon's coverage this past summer. And then at the same time, kind of people just being, really turned off by Fox, and TNT being kind of mid there too. It would be great if they all tried different things and had different broadcast groups and kind of, did that. But I know that that's very difficult to accomplish today because, yeah, there's not a really good single option that you can market to NASCAR fans. We do Hulu over here, and you do Sling over there, Beast of Metal, and then, trying to do different things. And then I know Hulu's changing next year with the Disney Plus thing. It's just a mess. And hopefully if something gets worked out, and maybe this ends up dovetailing into the lawsuit, who knows? Maybe some kind of way to kind of consolidate that somehow and make that a bit easier to control. Because I'm very big on competition. I'm not anti-competition in that sense. I think that makes other groups better. It forces them to not just rest on their laurels and actually improve their product. So I kind of like that we have sub-elements of that in the streaming era, but I know that it's difficult for people themselves. It's difficult to keep track of because it is a moving target, and they're always merging and combining and moving around and all that. And that's not easy because you want to make sure people have access to the series itself. And that's, you don't want that to go away. So I don't know. But I take your point though. And I appreciate you bringing it up there too, Beast of Metal. Let's see. Where are we? Tracks by a mile. Okay. Looks like it's going to be tracks on that. Oh goodness. We had a couple others here. Okay. Let me get these two. Did I get on this here? Oh, we have a disqualification? Oh my God. You're kidding me. You're kidding me. Well, the good news is I haven't written the article yet because the race took the entire distance to settle last place. So there's nothing I need to delete. If anything, it's actually going to give me, it will give me more work because I'm going to have to write something else. Okay, I got that one. I got that one. Okay, I got those three. Alrighty. Is that true? Yeah, okay. Let me look at the feed here. I have just had the Twitter feed up here in the background. We'll go ahead and jump into that. There it is. Oh my God. There it is. Tech is complete. This posted 20 minutes ago, so it must have been mid-rant on the lawsuit there during then. Shane Van Gisbergen is the winner and playoff field is set. Riley Herbst has been disqualified for failing post-race weights. Second straight year. That post-race weight snags somebody up here. Doesn't change anything in the playoffs. Okay, well, let me post my... Where is my 35 graphic? I got to get... hang on. Let me get the car graphic here, and I'll tweet that. I'm going to have to post this. Well, I might have more to say. I mean, well, okay. I think that would actually... Oh, God. I think that would extend Riley's lead in the standings because he's got 3 this year, doesn't he? I think that's the case. Let me look at the last Cup article. Here we go. That's Kansas. Wow. Yeah. A bold move here. So yeah, Herbst was ranked 3rd. He was seeded 3rd in the last car standing. So yes, breaking news on this one. Josh Berry came into this weekend here with the lead in the last car standings with 3 last place finishes, tied with AJ Allmendinger and Riley Herbst. Both Berry and Allmendinger had 6 bottom 5s. Berry leading the bottom 10 tiebreaker 14-7. Third behind him was Riley Herbst with 3 last place finishes, 5 bottom 5s, and 10 bottom 10s. But this would, of course, give him the lead on overall last place finishes with his 4th this year. And that would be also his 6th bottom 5, which would force the tiebreaker with Barry and Allmendinger if they caught him again. But he would only have 11 bottom 10s to the 14 by Barry and the 7 by Allmendinger. This again, pending adding the results from the rest of today's race. So Barry could potentially still challenge Herbst with another last place run in these last 4 races of the season. But this is a bold move. I actually have a Riley Herbst flag I've kept on hand here that I picked up. Remember a while back, I ordered a hat from their shop, and they threw in another hat. That was very nice of them there. But when I ordered that, I picked up a flag, and I'm not sure if I'm going to need that for Phoenix or not there for the championship, but we'll find out. We could have a significant change in the NASCAR Cup Series championship. So let me look at the results here again. Yeah, again, Cindric, let me look at the bottom 5 for Barry. Yeah, Barry was towards the back at one point. But yeah, he climbed to 16th, so he was well out of the bottom 10. Allmendinger was up near the front in the top 10, so he was certainly outside that realm. So this was just going to really increase his. We'll see how the points look when I update the article tonight. So yes, we do have a change for last place. I just posted the picture now. Get that on there. And yeah, Riley Herbst for the last place finish. Wow, my goodness. Okay, very interesting. So that's going to make a very interesting, wow. Okay, cool. Well, we're going to get some more stats for you guys on that in the 35 car there. So thank you, Beast of Metal, for your super chat there. Riley Herbst got disqualified. And I see a couple of you guys mentioned that as well, too. So thank you guys for mentioning that. And give me a heads up on that, too. Mr. Bad Guy, thank you for your super chat as well for $9.99. Very much appreciated. After thinking about it for a long while, I used to be a big fan of the Roval. After today, I realized that it only works if there is a playoff format. Without the format, it's always a dud of a race. Very good point. You know, I mean, that's where I was starting to kind of land on that, similar to that at the end. I'm kind of would hold out hope about maybe the race having its own identity in a full season championship, if that's where we're heading next season. I feel like I feel comfortable with landing there at the moment. I too share your frustration with Mr. Bad Guy. I'm kind of over the Roval format and just kind of moving past it. And I think, yeah, it is kind of played out. You know, and we do have a lot, you know, I mean, I'm not against long green flag runs or hard racing. But it does seem like, yeah, it kind of stretches out at the end. I think the NASCAR themselves seem to hope on having a bunch of overtime restarts and having something similar to what we had in the Xfinity race. But that's not guaranteed. And indeed, we saw a race today where, yeah, people got kind of stretched apart. You had a 20-second gap for the lead. And that was kind of the situation. But maybe in a full season one, it would kind of help. So we'll see if that's going to be another deal there too. So we'll find out if that's the case. But yeah, no, I appreciate your thoughts on that too. And I definitely share them at the same time. But I want to give it a shot there for, yeah, for that deal there at the same time. Let's see here. Yeah, we mentioned, oh gosh, yeah, thank you, the reminder, Jimmy, as well, about Mary Louise Miller passing away. Yeah, that was sad to hear about that, about the team, the ML Motorsports effort, the one that became Derek Cope's team after a while. Johanna Long having some very surprising runs there with that organization too. Yeah, it's a rough deal. Very much like the Xfinity Series equivalent of like the BAM racing effort there, that the 49 team out there. Again, you know, a small organization. They didn't have a very long period in the sport there. But again, you know, we're there at a very interesting point where you had kind of that transition into the Car of Tomorrow and the Busch Series there and had some good runs. And then let's see here. Where was the Grant Lynch? That was the other news there. I think Grant actually came up in some of my research there for the 500 Days episode. In fact, the next episode is going to be on the spring Talladega race. I understand the former track president, Grant Lynch, passed away at the age of 71 this last week as well. So condolences to his friends and family as well. So he definitely favored very big in that part of that career to the last few years ago before they had a change in management over there. But he was, I believe he came up in 500 days, and they were talking about the possibility of a driver's strike after the Dale Earnhardt accident and NASCAR's response to the accident in terms of not really changing the aerodynamic package or anything for that race. There's going to be much more coming up on that in 500 days very shortly too. But again, condolences both to the Barry Louise Miller family and to Grant Lynch's as well. Alrighty. Let's see here. We'll do, let's see. There we go. Yeah, no, very much appreciated on the update there too. So yeah, again, thank you for the super chats and thank you for the update for sure on the this too. Oh, we got the Bills game will be starting here shortly if it hasn't kicked off already. So we'll do a couple trivia questions and we'll wrap up here for this evening. So we'll get that going here. I just got a tweet here of somebody with everybody's got. I love the whiteout element there with the crowd. That's really cool. So very fun. All right. Let's go through here. And it looks like tracks was the leading category. Was that right? It looked like that was the case. Let's see. Mr. Bad Guy, thank you. Oh, well, goodness. No, thank you again for your super chat here for $4.99. Not to sound childish, but how come does it always feel like the wrong people are in charge of NASCAR? Would you accept a job there? I mean, that's a tough question. I've thought about that a lot in terms of what I enjoy doing, because I've always kind of looked at the broadcast booth and the potential of maybe doing that at some point. I think I'd love to have a shot at it, to at least try it, because that's always something that I've always greatly admired the great broadcasters, and just to kind of try to pitch in my own thing there, especially, doing these videos and so forth, kind of put myself out there. But I know that's a really competitive industry, and there's a lot of guys that are, much closer, I would think, to kind of working their way up there. But in terms of something with NASCAR itself, I mean, it depends. I mean, what's kind of evolved over the years is I really enjoy doing my trackside stuff where I, follow what's happening in the garage area and tracking what's happening and reporting that back. So that's, kind of a departure from that. And then, if there was a way to just focus on just doing the videos, that would be wonderful. I mean, and I think the only way that would probably be possible would be, if I did something working with NASCAR or maybe with a museum or something like that, something where I'd be able to just, spend a lot of time, doing kind of, the research there. So that would be something I would very much enjoy. I don't know what that would look like. I don't think there's an official position that would really accomplish that. So I'm glad to be able to do it when I can. I think time is really the biggest obstacle. It's that's a big reason that, really don't see these videos get, updated quite as frequently as some of these other channels. I've been very, very fortunate, with where I've been able to work and, we've got people that are very, very supportive of the channel. Family's very supportive of it too. And been able to kind of work that in, to be able to develop these videos and do these streams, do the updates for the website and stuff. I mean, it'd be great to be able to just focus on doing that. But I mean, that's going to be something where if it ever does happen, we probably just, take time on that. If I worked for NASCAR, I'd like to be able to just keep doing that. I don't know how possible that would be though. That would be kind of tricky. And it's doubly tricky for working out here from California. I know it's possible to do a lot of remote work these days. And that's one thing that does help. That is something that's definitely beneficial, but how possible that would be, I'm not sure, but that would be, yeah, I'd love to spend more time doing the videos. I'd love to spend more time, doing more stuff, promoting the Last Car page and all that. And I'd certainly love to do covering some more races, but, that's, that may come. If it does, great. If it doesn't, I'm not worried about it, but I'm very, very thankful to, again, those of you guys that follow the channel here, those of you guys in the Patreon, anybody, if you're just able to just share the links to the videos and just keep that stuff out there and keep the website and the articles out there, that does tremendous. That's a tremendous, tremendous help. So I really do appreciate that. So it would be great to do that sometime. If it's in the cards, it will be. That's great. If it isn't, I'm not going to really worry about that, too much. So I'm just very excited on the next stuff I'm working on. Really, I'm just kind of focused on that, and I have some research material I've been collecting here. Brian Hallman's been tremendously helpful with his pictures he's provided. And I'm very excited to about what's coming together right now. So right now, I'm just honestly just kind of focused on that. And this is a good time right now to work with that between the videos that are coming together and the Phoenix coverage and so forth, and what next year is going to look like. So that's kind of where we are at the moment. So we'll see. Yeah, Beast Metal. I take your point. I take your point on that too. So, we'll see. I mean, again, yeah, the way the sport is going on there too. Missing the first quarter, Sean McDermott's wild ride. Oh, it's already going that way. I'll be tuning into it. That's fine. I don't mind doing some questions here, and I'll be the late arriving crowd here for the game here tonight. But that's okay. Let's see. Okay, that one's a little too easy. That one's too easy. Oh, okay. This is interesting. All right, here we go. We're in the tracks category. We'll do a couple questions here to wrap up for tonight. First question this evening: what Virginia track is also known as the Dude Ranch Speedway? What Virginia track is also known as the Dude Ranch Speedway? That is the first question. Let me get... pull up the scores here in the background. Okay, we're a few minutes into it. Yeah, nothing's scored yet, but we'll see how that goes. What Virginia track is also known as the Dude Ranch Speedway? Yeah, I know. I don't think we've had this on this one here before, but that's an interesting one. I guess it's for South Boston. We'll see. Richmond, South Boston. Okay. What Virginia track is known as the Dude Ranch Speedway? Get a little bit more water here. Whoop, there we go. Okay. Richmond, Motor Mile, Virginia International. Okay, let's see. We got a lot of guesses for South Boston. I'll read it one more time. What Virginia track is also known as the Dude Ranch Speedway? The answer is Langley Field. Langley Field. That is a tricky one. Langley Field. Virginia Motor Speedway, several other guesses here. Yeah, Langley Field. The field racing reference.info. It says Langley Speedway. Larry King Laws, Langley Speedway. Is that what it's talking about? Langley Field made it sound to me like a road course, like an airport. Langley Field. Okay, racer Langley Field. Misspelling of Langley Speedway in Hampton, Virginia. Yeah, maybe. It doesn't say. It just says in Virginia. Let's see, Langley Field Speedway or Langley Speedway. Let's go to... Let me look up this. I am going to look this up. Langley. Yeah, Langley Speedway, also known as Langley Field Speedway, had 9 cup races between 1964 and 1970. So yeah, it does come up under both, but it just says Langley Field on this one. Maybe it might just be a character limit on this device, so that's why it doesn't say that. Last race there. One of the races looks like one of the races that got. Okay, yeah. Oh, that's right. This one had Xfinity races in the late '80s. Okay, right on. K&N Pro Series East in the 2010s. It's like Whelen Modified race is still there. Last Cup race, November 22nd, 1970. Dick May, your last place finisher. 2 laps with an engine problem. Bobby Allison won the race in 1970 Dodge. Led 254 of 300 laps. The Tidewater 300. Alrighty. Well, hey, there we go. Well, that's a good one. Langley Field. Learned something new today. We'll just do 1 or 2 more here, then we'll wrap up here, folks. Let's see. Let's see. What is, okay, we're looking for a number here, folks. What is, excuse me. What is the NASCAR Winston Cup qualifying record at the Daytona Speedway? So we'll get it the exact number. We've got to go to the 1,000th of a mile per hour is going to be the answer on this one. So not seconds, we're going to go with speed. What is the NASCAR Winston Cup qualifying record at the Daytona Speedway? Don't look it up. Try to guess it. And we'll jump into that. Gosh, I'm glad I didn't post anything else there on the... Yeah, the last change there. Oh, my goodness. Okay. Well, I'd probably have a little bit more to write about Herbst than I would about Cindric anyway, probably. I mean, he was having all those incidents on the track. He got bounced around. He spun at least twice, didn't he? But yeah. All right, 210.364, 210.087, 209.297, 209.932. See, okay, we got more of a spread than I thought. All right, what is the NASCAR Winston Cup qualifying record at the Daytona Speedway? And not the Talladega one, the Daytona one. That makes it a little trickier, doesn't it? The answer, 210.364. Charles Peterson, you got it. And I think you were the only one who got it. 210.364. Oh, it was the last race before it became Winston Cup. Okay, I didn't think about that, Austin. Good catch. Langley Field. 210.364. There it is on there. Alrighty. We'll just do one more question here. We'll wrap up here, folks. Last question for the evening. How many times did Bobby Allison win the Southern 500? Don't look it up. We're looking for a number again. How many times did Bobby Allison win the Southern 500? How many times? How many times did Bobby Allison win the Southern 500? I guess it's for 5 and 2. Several guesses here. And 4. Got several guesses. Okay. One more time. How many times did Bobby Allison win the Southern 500? Last question for this evening. Then we're switching over to football. We'll find out. Five and 2 and 7 and 0. KM has a symbol I don't recognize. 4 and 3. All right, here we go. How many times did Bobby Allison win the Southern 500? The answer is 4. 4 is the correct answer. Charles Peterson, I think you got it. I was starting to think the people that guessed 5 were right. That seems something like it, but this one says 4. 4 is the answer. And we'll come in towards the end of the first quarter. That'll be good. Let's see here. Four. Yeah, Charles Peterson. Good guess. Good guess. Absolutely. On a roll here. Alrighty. Let's take a look. Yeah, Bobby Elson. He did have 5 wins at Darlington, but the other one must have been the Rebel 500. Let's take a look here. So, yes, he won the Rebel 500 in 1975, but he won the Southern 500 in 71, 72, 75, and 83. And look at these lap lead totals here. He won 70. He led 329 laps in 71. I think that was the most laps led till Briscoe this year. Wasn't that it? 72, he led 229, and then he led 119 each in both 1975 and 1983. And of course, in 83, he went on to win the series championship with Dygard. So look at that. Very interesting. Oh, right on, KM. Oh, maybe that was in a different language. Was that if you guessed 4, then you would have just beat Charles Peterson. But there you go. I was wondering, is that very cool? All right. Well, thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show tonight. All right. We got an international contingent down here. Well, that's appropriate when we had Shane Van Gisbergen pulling off the win. So thank you for tuning in. Hope you come in for future shows here as well. Well, that will be it for the show tonight. Well, my goodness, a full one here. Yes, late breaking news here in the show here. We did get a last change on the show. Riley Herbst has taken the last place spot from Austin Cindric, and Herbst now takes a commanding lead, a 1-finish lead with 4 races to go with his 4th last place finish of the 2025 NASCAR Cup Series season. And, yeah, I mean, is that going to change in the round of 8 or in the championship round? Well, we're going to find out. In the meantime, check out, if you're in my Patreon, patreon.com/LastCarOnBrock, my next video on Greg Sachs and the history of Daytona Speed Incorporated. The newest episode of the series Rise of the Field Fillers is now available in my Patreon. If you're the $5 member or up, you will have advance access to it before it goes live later this month. And in the meantime, my website is lastcar.info. The Twitter feed is at LastCarOnBrock, and our next show is going to be next Sunday on October 12th, which is my birthday, actually, after the Cup Series race in Las Vegas. And we will be talking about the Cup Series race and the Xfinity Series race. Might be a bit of a shorter show that day there, so definitely tune in early on that, and we'll do a show that evening as well. So thank you everyone so much for tuning in, and thank you so much for your support as well. Got a lot of exciting things we're working on here, and we'll have that all for you very shortly. So until next week, have a safe one, and I'll see you all next time. Oh, Beast of Metal beat you to it, Charles? I'm just sorry. I'm just seeing your comment there on that. Was it on that last trivia question? Who else guessed 4? There we go. Okay, sorry about that. I was just making sure I had the right call there on the trivia questions. All right, right on. No worries, folks. Okay, well, I'll see you all again next time. Or next time I click this button again.